Before there was Mean Girls or Can't Hardly Wait, there was Angus, the 90s teen movie that dared to show us what it really meant to be different. Welcome to the No More Late Fees podcast. I'm Jackie.
And I'm Danielle, and we're two best friends and ex-Blockbuster employees rewatching some of the best and worst movies from the late 90s and early 2000s. And this week, we're heading back to 1995 for a heartfelt underdog story of Angus. But before we dive in, let's get into some housekeeping. If you love the podcast and you want to support us, here's a few ways that you can.
Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. We've got plenty more deep dives into your favorite Y2K movies coming up.
Help us out by leaving a review on Apple Podcasts. Your review helps us grow and keep the nostalgia alive.
And if you want to show off your love for nostalgia, check out our No More Late Fees merch at nomorelateFees.redbubble.com. From movie-inspired designs to podcast swag, we've got something for every movie lover.
And joining us this week is my good friend and podcast host of Shoot Punch Kick, Anthony. He's here to help us unpack all the heart and pain of Angus. So welcome, Anthony.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Excited to be on No More Late Fees. First time, long time. I already said
that. First time, long time. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your podcast?
I host a movie podcast where we watch action movies from the 80s and 90s, occasional horror movie thrown in, with two of my childhood friends, both longtime movie makers on high-8 cameras from when we were in elementary school. And now we talk about the movies that we saw in elementary school. So don't expect regular uploads, but we have a good time doing it.
Got to keep them on their toes.
Exactly. Notifications on, hit the bell because you might never know.
Maybe that the strategy is like we don't release them at regular intervals because
it's not.
They're like sneaker drops. You just have to like know somebody. Like
we're not there yet. We're not Beyonce level where people are like waiting. We need to not let them forget about us. So if you want to get to know Anthony just a little bit better, make sure you check out this week's bonus episode where we put bully versus bully in the ultimate showdown. But Jackie, what is Angus about?
Awkward teen Angus Bethune is overweight, self-conscious, and constantly bullied. But he's also brilliant at science and a talented football player. When his tormentor rigs the school dance election to make Angus king, he sees it as an opportunity to finally take a chance on himself, on love, and on the girl of his dreams. It stars Charlie Talbert, Chris Owen, Ariana Richards, Kathy Bates, James Van Der Beek, and George C. Scott. It was written by Jill Gordon, based on the book A Brief Moment in the Life of Angus Bethune by Chris Crutcher, and directed by Patrick Reed Johnson. And you can currently rent it on Prime. But before we start, let's get into our ratings rewind.
So you know the drill. Before we get into the movie, we'll reveal the rating our Y2K versions of ourselves would give. Then at the end, we'll see if our current selves agree with our initial rating. Our scale consists of would buy it again.
The best, would play on repeat.
5-day rental.
Would watch again.
2-day rental.
Okay, but nothing to write home about.
And same-day rental.
Trash. Straight up trash.
All right, Anthony, we'll start with you. What was your Y2K rating of this movie?
5-day rental. I think mid-90s, as we both are in a 90s movies podcast. We were eating in the 90s. There was no shortage of riches. And yeah, I liked Angus at the time. But again, there was like the mall rats, and there were just so much of just like prime comedies, action movies. There was so much. So this wasn't a like stop everything and put this on repeat. So This was a 5-day for me.
And despite my horrible memory thinking that Jackie loved this movie, I'm telling you, in another timeline, you did. Because I don't know why I've
It's the
always associated.
multiverse.
Yeah, I've never talked about it before, but when we started the podcast, I was like, oh yeah, Jackie loves Angus. She's like, no, I don't. Like, what are you talking about?
I have never seen this
Right.
movie up until we had to watch it for this week.
Had you heard of it?
I had heard of it, and I
Okay.
feel like it was a preview that played a lot on like either, I think probably like Nickelodeon or something, or maybe MTV. I don't know. But I feel like I saw the preview a lot. It just never crossed my path.
And for me, I really remember liking this movie, so I'm gonna say 5 Day Rental. But when I watched this movie, I was like, I don't remember shit about this
This
movie.
movie is so like fever dreamy because I brought it up to people, and Danielle, I must have brought this up to you like over the last like 20 years
Yeah.
constantly. But it's always a movie where I'm like, do you guys remember this movie called Angus? They're like, what are you talking about? And I'm
Yeah.
like, no, it has Dawson, it has a dude from Entourage. They're like, yeah, you're just making up a whole bunch of words right now.
Well, this movie had a budget of $1.5 million and it made $4.8 million.
Okay.
And like Anthony just said, 95, shit, that was a great year because
Mm,
it opened against Hackers and Clockers and while Tu Wong Fu, thanks for everything, Julie Newmar, Dangerous Minds, and The Usual Suspects and Braveheart were all still in the theaters at the time, and they were still having strong box office numbers.
you go
So
to a multiplex that weekend, you're just there from like Friday to leaving on Sunday. All bangers.
so good. Lil Raj, our buddy Roger Ebert, awarded the film 3 out of 4 stars and concluded that Charlie Talbert is a good casting choice for Angus because he isn't a sort of fat kid like those models in the king size catalog who look about 12 pounds overweight. He is fat, but he is also smart, likable, resilient, and engaging, and he has the gift of deflecting his shortcomings with humor.
I
Interesting
changed
phrasing.
my answer from the previous episode. I think Roger Ebert is my least favorite bully.
Agreed. Because what, Roger? Like some is not right with his medulla.
Well, and
Completely unnecessary. The
Yes.
phrasing there is just out of control.
Roger, it looked like you enjoyed a meal. So what are we like? We should have some more sensitivity. Danielle's face when I said that. Like you were not a small person, so like
I think that's why he thinks he can say this.
even worse.
I know. I know. But before we get into cast and crew, let's hear a message from our pod pals.
And now, a message from Splat Stanley.
That's me. Hi, I'm Splat Stanley. I'm here at my brand new set for Splat Attack. I'm excited to be joining the crew this upcoming season. Ha! Oh, simmer down. What was I saying? New season? Yeah, new season. We have a new season coming up. We're going to have cast reunions, episode reviews, character studies, celebrity interviews, new bonus minisodes, and more. Oh, jeez, more. I don't know how they're going to manage all of that. They'll be talking about game shows, Nicktoons, Pete and Pete, Are You Afraid of the Dark, Clarissa Explains It All, Stick Stickly, and more. You may even see more of me throughout the season. Ha! Can I get a P.O. box or something? The other stick had one.
Well, Charlie Talbert was hired after his very first audition without any prior acting experience. He did a good job. Like, I was not mad at Angus's.
No, he did a great job.
Yeah.
They found him, I think, at a Wendy's, girl. Literally,
Oh.
just hanging out at a Wendy's, chilling. And I don't know, I couldn't find a bunch of fun facts about this movie, but the one thing I can say is that this movie felt different than all the other teen movies we got around this time and even what we got in the late 90s. It felt like almost like I don't want to say Oscar worthy, but it felt like a real serious
Yes.
movie that they weren't making. It's almost like they weren't making for kids, if that
Yes.
makes sense.
Mhm.
That's how it felt.
Yeah, as I was watching it, I was just like, what else? What else are we going to pile on Angus? Oh, now he's the one that's there when his grandpa dies and has to
Yeah.
find his dead body. Like, it was just piles on piles on piles of just like these really serious subplots. I'm like, can't the kid get a break?
Yeah.
Well, apparently, I don't know if it was in the original draft. There's a Weezer song that's based on this movie. And in the lyrics, they talk about, so it's like, oh, my mom drives a truck and blah blah. Apparently his dad was supposed to be in it and his dad was gay. So
Yes.
they were just
Oh.
like also like, hey, let's give him something else that he deals with. Didn't make it into the film. But yeah, he's going through a lot, which I think is probably like the main thing that makes him so like sympathetic of because you don't know much about anyone else in the movie and you're just like, oh, he's dealing with everything, but with like a smile on his face and it's like, how do
Yeah.
you not root for that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
And now that like just this week we saw the James Van Der Beek Dawson's Creek reunion. He didn't get to show up. He actually got sick, but the entire cast of Dawson's Creek was there because unfortunately James Van Der Beek is fighting cancer. And so it was really nice that they all came together to raise funds and awareness. And they actually had what is his name?
Lin-Manuel?
Lin, yeah, Lin-Manuel Miranda.
Yeah.
I always feel like I'm saying it wrong. He actually took over as Dawson in James Van Der Beek's day. So that's really nice. I hope he feels he gets better and he beats
Hmm.
cancer.
Hmm.
And it's nice that we could pay homage to his acting skills. That this is his first movie, his film debut.
Wow.
Curious what that like, was on set, just bunch of first timers like these are called marks. That's a boom operator.
Yeah.
Like there must have been like some sort of because it's no one comes across as that, especially with like teens or kids. Like I've seen so many just terrible performances from young actors. So like up until, reading a little bit about this movie, I would not have thought that this was anybody's debut.
Hmm.
Yeah, they all
Definitely.
did. Especially when you're against some of Hollywood's elite. I mean, you've got Kathy Bates, you've got Rita Moreno, and George C. Scott, all Academy Award winners in
Mhm.
this one movie. That's crazy.
Super crazy.
Yeah.
This was the final film credit of Monty O'Grady. He had 262 credits, almost all of which were unnamed characters such as observer, patron, or onlooker. And his first credit is as himself in Every Man for Himself, a silent R gang comedy short.
Wow,
Wow. That's cool.
what a
Um,
run.
did y'all spot director Irvin Kershner of Empire Strikes Back? He is in the scene playing chess with George C. Scott in the park.
Did not know that until just now.
I did not either.
That's crazy.
I was just like
Did
old man in the
Ken?
park that apparently is Angus's job to go and inform him his friend has died.
Hmm.
Another like really sad responsibility cast on
Yeah.
Angus.
Poor Angus.
Oh,
Lord,
Angus.
Lord, Lord.
So the film opens with Angus Bethune narrating his life as an overweight high school misfit. So we see him from a very young age. He has had like this childhood up through high school crush on, no, I can't think of her name.
The blonde girl from Jurassic Park.
Yes. I
Her
know
name
her
is
real
Melissa
name.
in the
Thank you.
movie.
Melissa Lefevre,
Ugh.
which is that like French?
It's
Is
supposed
it
to, I guess
Le
so.
Fever?
La Viva.
And he's always getting like bested and kind of like put down by Rick, played by James Van Der Beek, as the bully in this movie. He also has a best friend, Troy, played by a teeny tiny Chris Owens.
He is so adorable in this movie, and their
Shermanator.
friendship is so heartwarming.
I think that was
Truly.
like the main draw for me, like, coming off of like a Mallrats, like that pairing of like your Bill and Ted's, your Jay and Silent Bob's, like the type that like, Beavis and Butthead was big at the time where they
Mhm.
do like that thing where they, give each other a dap and they yell buds, like just weird
Yeah.
stuff that I've never seen anyone do in real life, but like they were so like friend goals for mid
Yeah.
90s where you
Yeah.
would just like totally wish you had that person, you know what I mean?
Yeah, like even when they're mad at each other, it like doesn't last long and they support each other. It just that was, I think, the best Pat. I was gonna say my Boston accent came out, apparently. My favorite
Wicked,
part.
wicked good friends.
Yeah.
So we go through and we just start to see, yeah, Troy and Angus's relationship. And then we also see Rick bullying Angus and Troy. Really, anyone that he can pick on is fair game. He's like the football stud. And even though Angus is on the team, well, Troy is too. I don't know what Troy is doing out there. But like,
He's a kicker.
but like Angus seems to be pretty good at football. So, like, that's not even enough to garner respect from Rick. He's still the punching bag.
I do love that we see progressively, like, these kids have been friends with each other since childhood,
Hmm.
and that this dynamic has been playing out, except when they were younger, Angus has been knocking this motherfucker out. And so
Yes.
it's like that is also what's building for Rick. So the moment he becomes popular and hot in school and in high school, now it's like a totally different environment where he's been bested by Angus all these years. So I think that's also a different dynamic too. It's not like Rick has just been bullying him without any regard. It's been, I'm knocking your ass out every year of your life.
Mhm.
But now in high school, he has social clout, so it's like a different dynamic.
And also he more than that, more than just football, right? Like he's also smart and, has like some sort of future. Like they don't say this in the movie, but it's pretty common to see people who like, have only one way out or one lane to just kind of be jealous of someone else because he's like presented as a really good person, even as someone like who's getting beat up and like, getting like abused in the huddle. He still goes out and is like plays to the best and basically creates like the winning play of the game and gets none of the credit.
Yep.
So it's like, me, I would have been like, let me just miss this block and have him get destroyed. But, I think like there's so much just like, even from the beginning, you just see him kind of overcoming. Like the first time that he meets him, he's telling him like he could be the field. Like, he's super mean to him as a kid where he's like, hey,
Yeah.
you play football. And despite that, continues to play on this guy's team and like, do his best. It's like a interesting dynamic that they play because it just shows him as like being the bigger person where I wouldn't have like,
Yeah,
I would just use my size and this movie would have been about Angus, the bully, if
Yes.
that was me.
he does have a lot of integrity, and even to some extent, he does have a lot of confidence in himself. Like
Mhm.
he is aware that he's pretty like middle ground with football. Like he can take a hit, and he knows that he's good at science. Like he's aware of these things. So when we do see him insecure, it's in different dynamics with him trying to like date a girl. And he also knows that at school he kind of sticks out,
Mhm.
even in the picture behind Jackie where he doesn't remember that it's wearing a blue shirt. So he tries his hardest to blend in, but he's very aware that he can't quite
Right.
do that.
Yeah. And then we also see like Melissa doesn't participate in the bullying. She doesn't stop it, but she doesn't participate. So you kind of see her as an empathetic character. But
Yeah.
again, she's not trying to stop Troy. She's not stopping, like, she's not breaking up with him because he's so mean to other people.
Right. And we learn later why. We
Yeah.
learn that she has her own cross to bear. And she, I think that's the other lesson of this movie is that everybody's got shit,
Hmm.
Angus is looking at Melissa like the hottest girl in the school. She's a goddess, but Melissa is going through her own angst and turmoil. And
Yeah.
she's like, I ain't got time for this shit with y'all.
Mhm. I think it's so
And
interesting with this. It's like a high school, like coming of age movie, how limited the cast is.
yeah,
Because like, when you take a lot of movies also from the time that take place, like you take a Clueless, the cast of characters, like 7 or 8, that of like core class people that you like know their names and everybody has like a little bit of a thing. And this one, it's really just like two, which like you
Right.
only really know Troy and Angus outside of school, and then
mhm,
like you don't really even know the names of the other bullies. Like they're just like the other bullies, and
Mike and Andy is
yeah, so
supposedly their names. No, I never
allegedly.
heard. We've never heard.
But with this one, I find it like such a like a disciplined moment to not give like to be so heavy-handed with like everyone has things going on. Look at this part, like it's just
Right.
so like kind of inferred. And I don't know, I thought like the themes of this movie were really presented well in like ways that, I didn't think of this at the time watching this, but like, as an adult and like, someone who like kind of makes films now, the amount of like just directing skill and storytelling skill of like some of these moments, like he's like, and I'm surprised by what Roger said about like he's fat, where overall the real big thing is that he's different. Like that's
right,
really the main theme. And he mentions like, yeah, I'm fat, but like there's so much other stuff. Like he sweats a lot. He didn't, like there's things that have nothing to do with his physical appearance that make him other. And like wearing the shirt, like that's such like a visual depiction of like he's not them. And just
mhm,
like these little choices that the movie makes, I was just like, yeah, that's a nice, like, you just look at this frame and you're like, I get it. Like that, I see what they're trying to do here.
Right.
And I just think like that, those shots like that, they're in the trailer. They're like so tell a story, like a frame is worth like 1,000 words or whatever the case is like, oh, damn, that's like such a good visual embodiment of like trying to tell this story I'm glad it's not heavyweights because I felt like heavyweights was so about their weight. And it's
right.
like, oh, okay, is this going to be like him? He can't stop eating. He doesn't do this. But it's like they present him as someone who's athletic, someone who's mobile a lot. But it's like, some of his like family dynamics are like they're both heavy, or like maybe they get ice cream, but it's not like framed in a way of like, look at this person who doesn't take care of themselves. And I really like the nuanceness of like from the beginning of just how they presented him as like, here's just a person who's dealing with some stuff and not like these other people. Now
Yeah.
Exactly.
here's the story.
I think from the fat, like we've all, especially now, unpacking fat phobia. And I think that is, you said a very key point, which is that a lot of the storytelling is to villainize people who are overweight as if it's like their fault. And it's always like this thing they do. You see them eating a bunch of ice cream and like, look at them, they're fat. It's just kind of disgusting how they portray, like there's not a range of
Mhm.
like these are actual people. And yes, there are some people who just are bigger, who genetically are bigger, no matter what they do. Like there shouldn't be all this hate towards them for just existing in their body. It's insane. But going back to the bullies, one of the bullies is played by this actor, Salem Grant, I think you say his name. And I remember it's probably why I went to see this movie, having the hugest crush on him because I used to love the movie Ghost Dad, and he played one of the kids in it.
Ooh.
And he's like the only black person in this with speaking lines,
You
but
don't need to pull up the IMDb. You know who we're talking about.
but he was also on Barney. Fun fact. So he
Oh,
was like
nice.
a child actor, and I remember him. I'm like, oh, I wish he would date me.
Who's who of the bad guys? You got him. You got Entourage,
Kevin
dude.
Conley,
Yeah,
yeah.
and Dawson to round out the pack.
And it was wild to me that they're like picking on Troy because Troy is small, but it's like, oh, redhead, oh, like pasty white. I'm like, Look at your boy in the locker room
Right.
scene. Like,
Like Kevin
we're not
Conley
that
is
far
short.
off.
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
And I wonder how old he was in this movie because I don't know. Something tells me that he was older than everybody else.
Yeah.
Yeah. holding on to that same agent who's like, look, before
Come
you
on.
age out, it's called Angus. I need you to do a reading. 'Cause this was
So
a little bit before he was on that sitcom, and I think he was like high schoolish in the sitcom, but even then I think he was like
Yeah,
still
because
pushing
he's
it.
in the same group as Leonardo DiCaprio, because he's
Mhm.
in that crew. So I'm guessing he's that age. So he has to be a little bit older.
he just plays young.
Yeah.
Like
I'm
he can
I'm gonna
play
look
young.
up his age now. Hold on. Continue, Jackie.
So we also meet Angus's mom and his grandfather. And his grandfather is an interesting fellow. He falls asleep a lot. And to wake him up, they always play, I'm pretty sure it's taps. But they make it's like they put the record away every time grandpa wakes up. So they're constantly like having to pull out this record and put it on and like this production. And his grandpa is kind of just like, screw him. Like, yeah, I'm different in the same way you're different. It's fine. I'm marrying this hot chick in a few weeks who's much younger than me. Like, just don't worry about it. And Angus is like, I can't not worry about it. This is like my entire life.
Right.
It's just I'm constantly ridiculed for being who I am.
Mhm.
And then his mom understands what he's going through, but she doesn't know how to help the situation. And so she just kind of sympathizes the best she can and then offers Haagen-Dazs.
Okay. Kevin Conley is 51 currently.
Oh,
James Van Der Beek is 48. So they're
okay.
not too far apart. And he's actually a year Conley. What's his name?
Kevin Connolly.
Kevin. He's a year older than Leonardo DiCaprio. He's
Okay.
50. So
But
they're
how old
not
is
too
Chris
far.
Owen?
Let's see.
I just want to correct myself. I've been calling him Kevin Conroy, which is actually the voice of Batman.
Yeah.
So apologies, Kevin Conroy. Rest in peace.
I didn't catch that. I had no idea.
When he said
was close
Connolly, I was
enough.
like, oh.
We say things wrong on the podcast all the time.
All the time. What we called Jonathan
Sorry, can't
Jackson.
relate on our podcast where all of our takes are completely 100% correct.
Chris Owen is 44 years old.
So quite a bit younger than Kevin Connolly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So now we find out also that Angus is very good at science. He's always performing his little science experiments at home and stuff. And he has an opportunity it's not an audition, but
He's going in for an interview to get
Thank you.
into a magnet school for science. I'm thinking it's either a private school or magnet school.
I think it is a magnet school.
And his science project is based on the theory that when some sort of organism, I guess, is introduced into an environment, it either has to conform or get kicked out or something like that, which is really himself, right?
Mhm.
You guys didn't have science fair projects that were dealing exactly with what you were going through in life?
No, I don't. Did we have science fairs in high school?
Not in high school.
No.
I feel like in middle school we did, and it was kind
Yeah.
of required, so you did the bare minimum.
Yeah. Not me. I did a mean diorama.
I know in 5th grade, my science experiment, very scientific. Danielle, you would have loved this. I bought a bunch of different brands of gum and I timed
I knew it had to be gum.
how long it took for the flavor to lose flavor. Yeah. And that was my science.
I would have been your eager participant to test that gum. In that double bubble all day.
The one that like came in dead last for flavor.
That's why I kept swallowing it.
So now we're approaching the winter dance, and you can vote for a winter dance king and queen. And so Melissa is not voted as winter dance queen. And then Rick, as a joke, has everyone vote for Angus to be king. And I'm like, why? Like, the most you're going to see is Angus like doing the like high school sway dance for one song with Melissa. Like,
I didn't understand that plot either. At least when they did it on Glee, they voted for had to do it, Jackie had to do it. They made Kirk, they voted him as queen. So like there
ah,
was layers to that, but this didn't really make any sense. Except if someone knows you for this long as he has known Angus, he probably knows it's gonna make Angus just really nervous and embarrassed. So maybe that was the goal.
maybe.
Yeah,
And
but I
like,
thought not even like a carry situation. I mean, I feel like
Right.
these things are usually like twofold. It's either you get someone that's like grotesque as a punishment for the other person, right? So
Hmm.
like I could see if he was trying to prank Melissa, then it would be like, oh yeah, you have to dance with like I'm gonna prank this person. They have to like dance with the hottest person
Right.
in the
right.
school. It
Right.
seems far-fetched. Or like Carrie, where you're like, okay, now we're gonna drop like blood or something weird on them. But yeah, it seemed the stakes were pretty low. They
Yeah.
were like just told
And
how like embarrassed he would be of it.
yeah. And it does cause Angus to spiral, like you said,
Yeah.
because he doesn't want to be the center of attention. He knows he already sticks out, and now everyone's going to be all eyes on him. And that bleeds into when he goes suit shopping and they don't have black, they keep calling it plum. I'm like, that's not even plum. That is like eggplant.
Burgundy. Yeah,
Yeah,
something.
yeah.
And the other thing that we have to mention is the fact that because Angus is trying to get into the school, he now has to be on his best behavior. Like him and Rick are constantly fighting physically.
Mhm.
And so now I think they had gotten into an altercation and he was told, like, the principal's like, I will make sure you do not get to like go to your interview and be able to switch schools if this happens again, which kind of sucks because it's like you as the principal are watching this shit continue to unfold. You know
Mhm.
how good of a person Angus is, his grades and everything. You should be able to spot the bullying. Like, what the fuck, man?
Yeah.
Yeah, but I guess he's like, and this is pretty common for those movies of like he just cares about the win, right?
Mhm.
Like,
Yeah.
just keep the football games going in the right direction kind of and just oblivious. But, I think that he's definitely bad leadership, or it could be like, one of those things where no one knows what to do with Angus, right? Like no
Right.
one has that answer for him, and it's like, you know, the one thing that I feel bad about, like with bullies, is like if you step in, sometimes they get bullied more. I thought he could have
Hmm.
been a little bit more sympathetic because it did really make Angus feel like is everyone's against him and he really has no one. Like I think it could have been framed in a way like, yeah, you're dealing with this sympathetic, but like there's nothing that we can do. Like, oh, it happened off school grounds. So,
Mhm.
like, but it was so in his face, it just made him look incompetent. But
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, that could also be like a theme.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then we see people because Angus's biggest thing is I can't dance. I was like, homie, you're just gonna spin around in circles for 3 minutes. Like it's not that deep. But he has so many insecurities already. It was just like another thing. And like I get the like I'm so sweaty all the time and she's gonna have to touch me and she's gonna be grossed out. Like
Yeah.
I think that was enough of a like this is why I don't want to do this. But then we layered the dancing on top of it. And Troy was trying to be as helpful as Troy ever is with anything. And he brings Angus a blow up doll to practice dancing with, but he also records him so that like he can fine tune his spinning in
Got to
circles.
review the tape. He is,
That's what
these are
happens
football
in
guys.
so many of these exploits in this movie are taken in other teen movies because this is exactly the scenario that happens in The Duff, which is one of my favorite teen
Mhm.
movies from the later years that gives you that 2000s feel. But why does Troy have a sex doll? He is 12. I
He
swear to
said he
God,
got it
like
from his dad.
Oh yeah, he's
gross.
like in his dad's like waiting room office, which is even weirder. Like there's just
Yeah.
layers of that didn't help.
But I do love that Angus is taking Troy so seriously as if Troy is a player and he knows exactly, like, dude, you know this guy never even touched a girl.
Yeah.
But he had a laser pointer and he's able to explain the female anatomy the way no one else could. What the one thing that with that scene that I love, and I don't know if this is I haven't watched as many like kid movies now, the like idealistic boy room. Like I love how it's
Yeah.
like black lit with just like weird sayings on the wall. Like one of them is like sex does a mind good. Like just weird like sayings. And I don't know, that used to be like bedroom goals with like having a projector that you could just put whatever picture you wanted
Right.
on there. But yeah, at least a decent backdrop to learn how to slow dance with a blow up doll.
I always thought of our friend Ian's room as like that was
Yes.
bedroom goals because his mom was an interior decorator. So his bedroom was so unique. Every time we went over there, I'm like, man, your parents are so cool for like designing this room for you. Like
It
it was
literally
super
looked
cool.
like you were at the beach.
Yeah,
It was
like
crazy.
That's weird.
it was super cool.
And like, if we ever made a movie of our high school days, just finding the person to play Ian would
Yes.
be amazing. I used to call him Cabana Boy. He always wore Hawaiian shirts. That was his thing. Like Hawaiian shirts all day, every
And he
day.
was always, I mean, he still is a photojournalist
Yeah.
and stuff, but always had a camera.
Yeah.
Like,
He literally is a 90s 2000s character come to
yeah.
life.
So, alongside this prepping for the science fair, now he has to appear at the dance as Winter King, and his grandfather, who is very much in his like sorry, in his 70s, is getting married to this younger woman who seems very nice. Like,
Mhm.
there's nothing that, aside from the age difference, she's a very lovely woman. But Angus's mom is having to like prepare for this wedding. And so it's the day of the wedding. And Angus has been talking to his grandfather about like all of this shit that's going on in his life and trying to figure out stuff. And then Grandpa's standing there like or sitting there having a conversation with him, and then Angus goes on this big monologue, like heartfelt, just pouring of his soul to Grandpa. And he looks over and Grandpa's asleep again, so he puts on his little record and Grandpa doesn't wake up. So Grandpa has died on the day of his wedding to this lady, and Angus is the one who finds him and has to go down and tell like the entire house full of people there's no wedding, Grandpa's dead. Like it's just the most heartbreaking scene
Ever,
yeah.
because this is his father figure, and they have a very back and forth kind of relationship, but it you could tell there's a lot of love and care. And also his grandfather has really just been trying to push him to see that there's so much joy to be had in life and to live out your biggest moments. Do not have regret later because you were too scared. Like, it's okay to be scared, but don't let it hold you back.
Yeah.
And watching him on the staircase when he has to, like, he doesn't say anything at first. His mom is just looking at him. It just, oh my God, I was crying. It
Was
was
so
so
heartbreaking.
sad.
Well, the interesting thing with his grandfather is like he's such an embodiment of Angus in a different way, right? Like the whole time you're watching the movie, and the grandfather says this as well, is he's like, screw everybody, just do you, search for your own happiness. And he's being judged by Angus and by the mom, right? Like he's the embodiment of screw them, look for your own thing, found this woman who like even the main character doesn't understand. And he's like, look, I love you, Angus, but I'm still going to do what is right for me, despite, he's telling him like, oh, she's old enough to be, you're old enough to be her grandfather and all this stuff. And there's like the parallels of just like, if he's definitely living what he preaches. But going back to, again, like I didn't know this as much like as I've rewatched it, was just like how well done those moments are, because a lot of the things in this movie aren't specifically stated, and I think that they do such a good job of like setup and repetition. So like early in the movie, they when Jackie, when you were talking about his grandfather falls asleep and they put on this record, the way that we know that his grandfather dies is we hear that song and the grandfather doesn't wake up and they don't, and it's like these things that like there are set up to like play out in a way. He plays this chess game with his friend, and then when Angus goes to tell the friend that he died, he just puts the king down. And it's just really creative to think about certain moments and how you can relay them, visually and with audio. And it's just like, I just felt like it was probably like someone looked at that script and they're like, hell yeah, like this is,
Yeah.
you put some thought. And I think that's like, for me, having seen it so long ago, those are the things that really resonated because they like felt like you just have to feel that. Like when you hear that song, I'm not sure if it's Taps or, like one of the military songs, it just takes on, because it's interesting. They even have like a little bit of the score, like the score is a little bit playing underneath because it's like a somber moment, but it's like happening underneath the record playing. And it's just like, it just did such a good job of having these moments of what routine looks like, because it's like they had that tied to his grandfather needing to take these pills like periodically, like he needed to take them in the morning and then alarm would go off. So it was almost like a Pavlov's law kind of, where you're being like cued to these moments that would occur throughout the film, and as it goes on they start like getting away from these moments. So it's like when after he dies and he meets the widow, her watch beeps because she forgot the time that he was supposed to get the pills, and now that he's gone, it goes to show you that she took it seriously and was gonna, and it's like, as a kid watching this, of feeling like, you know even though he died, it felt like all these moments of like, damn, I wish the grandfather could have saw Angus step, advocate for himself. I wish that, like you kind of saw this like a different path that was just like wiped out. And it was like, damn, this almost feels like our grandfather, watching this like short movie of just like that emotional connection. And even like with the mom and him, where he really like says what he thinks about Angus's situation and is kind of telling like he needs to stand up for himself. And Kathy Bates gives that like really great performance of like, don't tell me how brave my son is. He gets, like they're really like have so much love for him, and it's so presented throughout the film that yeah, that death was like that hit.
And I was wondering, like, if those moments, like you said, are so important because they ended up cutting half of the film in length and they deleted a lot of scenes. Apparently, you could have saw some of those scenes if you watched it on TNT back in the day, but wondering if, like, because they did it in that way, they were able to probably take out some of the filler so it does hit and resonate even more. So I'm curious if what those scenes that they ended up cutting out
Yeah.
were.
Yeah, I mean, I wonder because a lot of it, I'm an editor, so generally like you have like your kind of what are we trying to relay here, and what's left in the movie, I think tells it, right? Like it's a
Right.
loving family, a guy who's dealing with the only part I feel like they probably could have left a little bit is maybe, Rick's plan. Like, why is this
Right. Like
a
what is
terrible
he
thing?
doing? Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, in terms of like, it's super coming of age, and I think those beats are there of like, here's the setup, here's his life, here's the things that are different, and where is he going? What do we want to see happen with him? And yeah, there was probably some decisions where they were like, what are we telling with this scene?
Mm-hmm.
Is there a
Yeah.
more economic way of he's an outsider, he wears red instead of blue, like that's
Yeah.
done, that it's like you can relay that so effectively as they did.
R.I.P. Grandpa.
Hmm. Dun, dun,
And
dun, dun, dun.
And
after he goes
it,
back to school, right?
well, in the same scene where the grandpa's girlfriend, you see her watch go off, she's coming by because she has a box for Angus, and it is the
Plum suit.
aubergine suit that Angus did not want to purchase from the suit store. And so I think with Grandpa's kind of the final conversation with Grandpa And then the suit is kind of a symbol of like, do what you want, be who you are. Angus decides, okay, I am going to go to the dance. I'm going to show up, even though people, the only reason why I am Winter King is because they think they're pulling a joke on me. Well, what if I turn it around and just embrace it? And then like the the weight of that joke is no longer. It's just I'm here, I'm going to dance with Melissa and then we're good. But at the same time, like literally at the same time, is his interview for the science magnet program. So he has to get through that so that he can go to the dance. And the guy shows up and he's like, it's going to be several hours.
Several hours for like, what are
don't
we
know.
talking about?
Running through that whole experiment.
And while all of this is happening, poor Troy, they have there's a whole scene where they take Angus's underwear and he can't really retaliate about them stealing it because he has to be able to have this interview. And what he doesn't realize is that Troy gets kidnapped by these bullies, by Rick and his people. And this scene really, it really made me so sad. Like, because Chris Owens looks so tiny, right?
Yes.
And he
And
like
when they,
cries. Like
yeah, when he
it's
cries, oh my God, my heart broke. They like pushed him and he breaks his fucking arm and
Yeah.
they put him in a dumpster. And Rick has this look on his face like he feels bad for hurting Troy, but also like worried that he's gonna get in real trouble because and then he like pushes it back on Troy and said, "You made me do this. Why did you make me hurt you?" Like it's just wild.
Mhm.
And Troy never tells Angus because he's such a good friend that this is how he broke his arm. Because they also have like a little bit of a fight too, as Angus is grieving and whatnot. So
Yeah.
And he also gives him the
tape.
tape of him dancing with this blow up doll
yes,
as
because
a like defense for from getting beat up.
yeah. So when when Angus says he's not going to the dance, Troy feels a little bit okay, but once he shows up at that dance, he's terrified for Angus and he tries to plead with him like, "Yo, this is not good luck."
Mhm.
Yeah, like
You know?
just stay home.
But he's like, "Nah, I don't care. I don't care what
Yeah.
they do."
And then
And
he reveals that the science experiment is himself and gives this impassioned speech to the interviewer, which I guess works because he gets his scholarship to the magnet program. And so
yeah.
now, like, he's on his way to the dance, like Danielle said. And then at the dance, they start showing the video that Troy had taken of Angus dancing with the blow up doll. And
Well,
Angus, go ahead.
first he like is introduced, he's on the stage with Melissa and he's learning that Melissa is just as nervous as he is and he's kind of shocked by this, like she's having some of the same kind of insecurities that he is and he's kind of seeing her in a different light.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And after the tape is played, he runs outside, right?
Well, Melissa runs off
Oh,
first,
okay.
so she sees it and she runs off, so now he's like so scared that he's embarrassed her
Mm-hmm.
and he runs after her. And this is where like the mask of what Melissa's kind of dealing with comes off. And he realizes by her telling him that it's not because she's embarrassed of Angus. She's pissed of just having to be in the situation of dating this asswipe Rick and how he is just so not thoughtful of her feelings
Yeah.
as well. Like you're trying to hurt Angus, but you're hurting me at the same time and you don't give a shit. And then she tells Angus that she actually is bulimic. And Angus is able to say that he has his own issues with food and has thrown up himself. So they are able to kind of relate. And he's really surprised that here's somebody that he's had on a pedestal and
Mm-hmm.
she is struggling with her own demons as well.
Yeah.
One of the things that I like about the interactions in this movie, where it comes to the similarities with people is it's never surface level. Like I feel like there's been other movies where it's like, hey, I like Green Day. You mean you like Green Day? I like Green Day.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh man, they would be friends or look how much they have in common. But like the entire dynamic between him and Melissa are like sweating a lot, being nervous, not wanting to trip, like very insecurity based. And some of that is the same thing with Troy as well. And, the thing with the grandfather, like we get very limited information
Mhm.
into the like pop culture world, hobbies that people have, but like all of the unity that comes from this movie that's like so themed with like being an outsider and not being like everyone else is like just a lot of what that core high school experience of like being lonely, not getting along with people, not, like feeling like you fit in. And I thought that this scene was kind of done in a less shallow way because they could have just
Trauma
been
bonding,
like,
essentially.
Yes.
yeah, pretty much. And I think, it lets Angus because the one thing with him, aside from I think the one scene where he kind of goes in on his grandfather, is he takes a lot of it in stride. Like he's very resilient and he is strong and he's like, hey, you know what? I'm getting bullied, but I'm just gonna do my school thing. I'm just gonna do this. And we see him talk about it in a way that's confrontational to his grandfather because he is being told, like, you need to do this, you need to do that. But I think, like, that was the first time in the movie where he talks about it as, like, sympathetic to
Mhm.
someone else. Like, no, for that's like the first time that anyone's really come to Angus with a problem when he's been the one that's going to other people for his problem. And I just like that use of time to have like Melissa as a to show a different side of him. And again, like, just going back to like the script and the storytelling, it's a good economic use of the hour and a half to be like, hey, this moment here isn't just going to be like, well, we both like, Alicia Silverstone movies. We should be friends. Like, it's just very, trauma heavy, but I think was just like a good weighted moment in a succession of other weighted moments of like
Mhm.
we just watched him discover his grandfather and have to tell everyone, it was like this whole other like bonding on a more in a less artificial way. I thought was
Mhm.
like a good way to wrap up a movie like this.
Definitely. Yeah, he, after that conversation with Melissa outside, they come back in and they agree, like, we're gonna go back in and we're not gonna let our fear kind of take over. Let's go in and we're gonna dance and kind of show Rick that his his
Antics aren't going to
prank,
work. Yeah.
yeah, his prank no longer works on us. We're not fearful of what he's leveraging in order to bully us anymore.
And they when they dance, it's like a really nice moment. And Rick, he can't handle it. He can't stand that shit. He's like, nah, man.
Not on my
You are
watch.
going to react to me. I'm
Mhm.
going to get that energy from you. And this is when Angus finally is just like, I'm fucking fed up with your bullshit. And I don't care. And he makes a speech and everyone's kind of like, yeah, fuck Rick.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a slow clap and everything. Like this movie, that's the thing with this movie. It's like the Kill Bill of teen movies. Like it's like a little bit of everything, but the
Right.
context is so weighted that like I wasn't like, oh, that was cheesy. That
Mhm.
my man gave like the best monologue of like who's normal, you, like, and then starts pointing at everyone else and they're like you could see the like, yeah, he's right, like
Yeah,
it was
yeah.
just
Fuck.
You're all weird.
yeah.
Oh
Well,
man.
we did it. That is Angus.
Is that it?
I think so.
Yeah, they go by, he walks,
No,
oh, they
no.
dance, right?
They
He
dance.
Troy punches him in the face.
Rick gets knocked the fuck out. The principal calls him out, but he catches out like you've been bullying and shit. You're
Mhm.
done for the season or whatever. And we do get to see Angus walk Melissa home and see the promise of something there. And Angus is just really happy because he took his big swing, which is what his grandpa told him, and that's where it
Yeah.
ends. But yes, we've done Angus.
Yeah,
Anything
it's just
else?
wild because I think like there's a lot of coming. I don't know if there's a lot because I haven't watched a ton, but like there weren't that many coming of age teen movies for boys that weren't so adventurous. Like, we have like, Stand By Me, right? Like that's like such a, kids running away from home, spending the whole movie on the road. And like, yeah, they still like, they meet like you have your sandlots and things like that, but so much of it was just didn't feel very relatable, living in the city and watching movies. And for me, I thought Angus was a very big standout in a genre that didn't have, like, I love Clueless. I love like a lot of movies that take place in high school, but none of them had the like, oh, this is an outsider.
Mhm.
That's like not creepy. Like I feel like,
Yeah.
your She's All That's and stuff. Like they're, like the guy in Can Hardly Wait is like one step below like Predator.
Yes.
Like he's just weird and awkward and not cool. And I just thought this one, like on the surface, you're just like, oh, okay, this isn't someone who's like a typical Hollywood lead, but you're like, damn, he's fucking cool, and I would hang out with him. And like,
Mhm.
why is everybody being mean to him? He's trying his best. And
Yeah.
like as a teen movie, a school movie, like a coming of age movie, I thought it was, I'm surprised there aren't like more of this. Like there's like a whole bunch of camp movies that I could
Yeah.
point to, sports movies, but not a ton of like, hey, and I think that's like, not to be political, but you see this now with like adolescence, like there's a big awareness of like young men and what they're watching and how they're coming of age in stories. And then, watching something like this, like it's like a super earnest, like good heart, sincere movie
Mhm.
that I'm not too, I think like the message and what it's trying to say, it's like, all right, movie. Like,
Yeah, and I think that is a lot of with like our society of how at that time especially how we were raising boys. Can you hear Nana?
A little bit.
Nana, I can hear you. Okay, she don't
She
care.
on the phone?
No respect around here.
she's doing her own
Yeah.
podcast.
My Aunt Monica had a brain bleed, so like we're
Oh
all kind of in a
no.
tizzy right now. Anywho, yeah, I think the context of like we didn't get so many of those kind of films. I think like a Simon Birch is a little bit there too, but it's because we didn't show a wide range of emotions that boys could have.
Yeah.
The kind of conversations or the mm, caricatures that we were trying to show boys what they could be. You can't have a coming of age story like a Angus because then it's showing a range of emotions, and it's okay to show that boys can have more emotions other than anger. So I think that's probably why we didn't see those kind of films. And now that we have more of language and we're having these conversations online, and why we're probably seeing them a little bit more in media now.
Mhm.
So, but very valid point because weren't a lot of movies like this one.
No, but also funny too. I mean, you had like,
Yeah.
we didn't really touch on the humor parts, but like there were things that you would get from a very like weird group, right? Like,
Mhm.
that there's girl, not woman, but like a girl on the stage, like talking about like recycling. She's like, I think I'm getting a boner. Like
Yeah.
some of the stuff was just like, it did kind of put me back in that like 95 range because
The
of just like, I'm swallowing snot. It's not
yeah.
that gross. Like they have the humor in this movie is like, pretty vulgar at times for, like a PG-13, but it is like it's not super bad. Like I would say super bad like is a certain level of like authentic the
Yes.
way like kids are, but like dialed down, but just like your weird friend from up the block who has like,
Yeah.
a note so he doesn't have to shower and his
Yeah.
dad's a dentist and and that's what the note's from.
And that girl on the stage was Lindsay Price, which made me like when you were talking about a better sex ed conversation, I just thought of Milk Money and how having her come out and that
Yes.
was like the first time I really saw in a movie that when they were talking about sex ed, they were showing the fallopian tubes, like they were showing the real things. I was like, wow, it was a very skeevy movie for a child, but that was pretty accurate.
Hmm.
Okay, do we have any more fun facts that we missed? I think it's just a few more.
So just it was mostly filmed in Owatonna, Minnesota at the Owatonna Senior High School, and the marching band playing during the opening credits is the actual Owatonna High School marching band. The school was built in 1920, and the high school scene in the movie was demolished in the fall of 2023.
Oh,
Rest in peace.
R.I.P. They
R.I.P.
reopened the school, but the old school gone. It been gone.
Bye.
No, I only want to go to where Angus's underwear were hanging on the flagpole. I don't want to go to some second school. Get out of here.
Green Day contributed the song Jar, which was short for Jason Andrew Relva, which was originally an unreleased track from their Dookie sessions. Billy Joe Armstrong co-produced Back to You by the Riverdales with producer Mass Giordini. And it's Green Day is referenced many times throughout the film because their producer, Rob Cavallo, was heavily involved in the production of the soundtrack of this movie. When I was listening, I was like, damn, this soundtrack hits.
Oh,
Yeah,
it
I
is
like
so
the,
good.
that Goo
Yeah.
Goo Dolls song, that Weezer song at the end of them. It's a hit.
And before we get into our ratings rewind, just a reminder, don't forget to follow us on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, Twitter, YouTube, Threads, Blue Sky at No More Late Fees. And Anthony, we're going to start with you. What is your present day ratings of Angus?
So my present day, I was a 5-day rental in the Y2K. And for 2025, I would buy it and I would buy it again because after talking about this movie for a long time, this past Christmas, I was like, I'm getting myself a present. I'm getting Angus on DVD. There was no sale. It wasn't streaming anywhere. And proud to add this one to the collection. So this is a keep for me.
Nice. Jackie, now that you've watched it.
I don't have nostalgia for it, much to Danielle's dismay. And I'm kind of waffling. I do think it was a good story. I did watch it 1.5 times because we had to reschedule this, and I'm like, I better refresh my memory. So I'll go 5-day. Like if someone had never seen it, I'll be like, it's worth watching. Not something I'm gonna have in heavy rotation, but if it's on, I'll watch it.
Same. I think it's a 5-day. I don't own it, but if it's on, I might watch it in the background. And it's very different than what I had in my head. I really could not, like, it was almost as if I never saw this movie. Like, I could not remember a thing.
And it's funny, they either showed that conversation between Angus and Melissa a lot on some channel, or because I feel like I have seen that scene a whole bunch where she confesses to being bulimic. But and I'm like, I don't think it's like recent like TikTok or anything like that. I feel like it was back in that
Yeah.
time period. I saw that a lot, but I don't have any other reference other than that scene.
It was always on TV, but I always get the actress who plays Melissa mixed up in my head with the girl from Milk Money and Casper. Those
Mm,
the other
Christina
blonde.
Ricci?
yeah.
No, the blonde girl who was the bully in Casper, and the girl that the kid originally wanted to date in Milk Money,
Yes.
but the leather jacket kid got instead.
The girl with the very round head.
Yes, they both have round heads.
Yes.
So,
Well,
anywho.
if you have any opinions you'd like to share about Angus, hit us up at our quick drop 909-601-6653. You can also text us at that number. You can twat us at the Twitters, hem us at the Threads, butterfly in the sky, blue sky, and you can be featured on a future episode.
We're getting our groupie on next week as Nick joins us for Almost Famous.
They're Band-Aids, Danielle.
Whatever. Anthony, thank you for joining us. We hope you
Yes.
had fun. You
did.
finally you made your notch on the belt this time.
Thanks for having me. It was great. I said it before. I felt like I was in Last Action Hero and I had the magic ticket and I got to go inside one of my favorite podcasts. So thank you. Thank you. This is
You're
great.
so complimentary. You can come back anytime.
Wait till I tell you about this movie called Josh and Sam. No. We'll watch something that's hopefully less trauma and a little
Yes.
bit less of my nostalgia. I forgot, like, I hadn't watched it. Like I've seen it a decent amount as a kid, but as a kid, like you start to just kind of like go through stuff like, sorry,
Yeah.
grandpa dying. You're just not hitting the same way.
Yes.
But I hadn't watched it for like, I don't know, maybe 20 something years before this year. And I was like, ooh, this kind of heavy. But that's why at the end I was like, this is a comedy. Like
Yeah.
there are funny parts to it. It's not all after school special. So
Exactly. Yep. And as always, be kind and rewind.